2019. Call the meeting to order. The first case on the docket is a continued case from the September 2019 meeting, case 919, map 62, parcel 13, Michael Welch, 22 Grant Street, to acquire a special permit in accordance with 6.1.6.4 to extend a non-conforming structure. Hi.
Hello.
How are you? We ready on this one?
I don't know. I think I am.
All right.
The last time we were here, we didn't have comments from the planning board, and I think those came in, so.
Yeah, you know what, why don't I start off by reading those into the record. At its meeting on Tuesday, October 1st, 2019, the planning board voted to recommend as follows. Upon motion duly made and seconded, it was unanimously recommended approval. The proposed house meets all required setbacks except for one front setback and is an improvement compared to the existing house. It does not appear to be more detrimental to the neighborhood. So, we got the recommendations. I know that there are a couple of members that just had some lingering questions. Maybe those are addressed by planning, maybe not. So what I'll first do is open it up to the board. I think I had continued the public hearing, so I'll open it up to the public hearing, then close it and kick it back to the board. So, gentlemen, ladies.
I think one of the things we were waiting on was just some current updated drawings that were
That's
all
right.
coordinated, and we got those a week or two ago, or whatever, so they look good. I mean, I
Okay.
think this is I know you know, all builders want to build bigger houses on these lots, but I think, I truly believe this is an appropriate project for this lot, for this size lot. You know, others may disagree, but I think it's appropriate. I have no problem. I mean, it looks like everything's in order, and
Okay.
it's.
Were there any
looks
other
good to me.
members that had any lingering questions on it, or was Tony the only one?
Actually, can I just ask a question? So knowing that this, the office is a media room, so the deed will say that it's strictly a two-bedroom, right? Correct, right? It would be,
It's up to the Board of
Deeded.
Health.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's on the-
Because it's a two-bedroom septic. Okay, no, I just.
Anything further before I go to the gallery? No? Okay, anybody from the public wish to be heard on this application? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is closed. I will bring it back to the board for deliberation and/or a motion.
The only question I have is, how do you, just going forward, how do we identify these particular drawings? Because there's no dates on them, and there's no,
What I would suggest is that whoever makes the motion reference the date that the drawings were provided, and then maybe I'm sure that they're stamped, right, from when they were received by the town.
Oh, so you stamp everything, you stamp it.
So you can just make reference in your motion to the plans having been filed with the town on whatever date, and then you'll make sure that those plans are in the jacket, right?
And the decision will also state the size of the house that we're approving, which will also go with that.
So you take these drawings right here, and we're gonna, if we approve it, you're gonna like bring it back to the office and stamp them?
Correct,
Okay,
and the
so-
decision will go with it.
And in the motion, it looks like they were received on September 18th.
Yes.
So whoever verbalizes a motion can actually put that in the motion itself.
Ready to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve case 9-19 to acquire a special permit in accordance with 6.1.6.4 to extend a non-conforming structure. And note that we are approving the drawings received on 9/18.
19. Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second on that? Oh, that it being no more detrimental to the neighborhood. Okay. Motion seconded by Mr. Lepore. All those in favor? Approved. There you go. It
Thank
was
you
a
very much.
tortuous road, but you made it.
Very fun.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Next case is case 1819, map 20, parcel 105, Jeremy, I think it's Neil? Neil, I got it, wow.
One of the very few people who get it.
Okay, 1 Andrew Street, to acquire a special permit in accordance with 6.6.7.7 Groundwater Protection District. Good evening. And I assume that you are Mr. Neil?
I am.
All right, why don't you let us know what you have?
So I already submitted plans. My property basically has no driveway currently. I just had a septic system done and I'm trying to repave it. I am over the percentage of 15% in the protected water district, and I'm trying to repave it in an asphalt driveway with a filtration trench to mitigate the non-pervious aspect of the driveway.
Okay. And I'm assuming that we have a recommendation from the engineering department?
Actually, he did not send one.
Really?
Yeah, which was very
what's-
strange,
what's
but he
this?
worked with, that's
Oh, the
planning. But
That's
Mr.
odd,
Neal
we
worked-
usually always get a
I
recommendation.
know, worked with Paul in engineering for the
Yes.
filtration system and approved it. He
I
was
mean,
the one-
I
know.
I'm assuming that he's okay with it, but it really would like, you know,
Yeah.
if a motion is made and the board is inclined to approve, I would suggest that maybe the record be supplemented with the engineer's approval on that,
Okay,
or recommendation.
okay.
Just so when people go back and look, how, you know, the.
I know that Mr. Neal and Paul Aluni worked on it together, and Paul.
Oh, sure,
approved
but
it,
we should
yeah.
have something
Yeah.
in the file so people can, there's a paper trail for it.
Okay.
I will read just the recommendation from planning into the record. At their meeting on October 1st, it was made and duly and unanimously voted to recommend approval. The groundwater recharges proposed to mitigate the increase in impervious area in the groundwater protection district. So we do have approval from planning. Anyone from the board wish to have any questions of the applicant or make any comments before I open the public hearing?
So this is not this is not associated with an addition.
No.
So you, interesting, I don't quite understand. So you don't need a permit for a driveway, do you?
I didn't think so.
Well, I think
But-
any time in the groundwater protection district, if it affects, or they have to at least look at the impervious area, and even if it's older, I think they come back, they gotta go through it.
Right.
Okay.
So he's mitigating by putting in pervious asphalt.
So if he left it dirt, then he wouldn't be here.
Right, right.
Was there an addition put on at one time on the house?
No.
No.
I turned a awning into extended the roof. I got rid of an awning and made the roof extend where the awning was on the back side of the house. And by doing so, then I realized, which unbeknownst to me, that we were over the percentage allowable for that size lot because of the asphalt shingles extended, 5 feet off the house or whatever it was, so.
Okay, anything else from the board? Okay, I'm gonna open it up to public. Anyone here that wishes to be heard on this application? Going once, going twice? Gonna close the public hearing. Does anyone wish to either further comment or make a motion from the board?
I'll make a motion to approve case 18-19 to acquire a special permit in accordance with 6.6.7.7 groundwater protection district. Do we have to say like?
I would say approve it with the condition that the engineer supplement the record with his recommendation.
So, as noted.
Okay.
Second.
We have a second on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Good luck, sir.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Have a good evening.
And the last case on the regular docket is case 1919, map 34, parcel 114, James Mangano, 30 Burnap Street, to acquire a special permit under 6.1.6.4 to raise and extend a non-conforming structure. Hi, Rob, how are you?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Rob Peterson representing James Mangano here this evening.
What do you got?
So actually, I'm gonna pass it out, please, the board. I have some pictures of the site. I could pass them down, Mr. LaFleur, appreciate it. It just shows, if you flip through these pictures here, well, to give you a basic overall, what the applicant is seeking to do here. It's a non-conforming structure, and if you go to the last page is the existing dwelling. On the second to last page, you will see the proposed dwelling. And he is going to be lessening the non-conforming setbacks. And at the end, due to the proposal, which is again on that second to last page, he will end up with having 3 conforming sides with one non-conforming side that will be less non-conforming than the current structure currently in place on the property.
Well, no, Rob, the last picture, what did you identify that as?
So if you're looking at the house, if you look at picture 3,
Yep.
4, I just showed you where the driveway is and where the neighboring house is. That would
Okay.
be,
So
that would be 28 Burnap Street.
Gotcha. All right. Why don't I just get it on the record, I'll read the planning board's recommendation. Might as well start off with that, be consistent for once. In case 1919, the planning board at its October 1st, 2019 meeting unanimously voted to recommend approval. The proposed house meets all required setbacks except for one side setback and is an improvement compared to the existing house. It does not appear to be more detrimental to the neighborhood. They recommended approval. They basically said it meets all setbacks except for one, and that setback is an improvement compared to what's there existing. Questions or comments from the board?
So I do have a question. So why can't you build a 20-foot wide house and meet the 15-foot setbacks?
So, I was actually speaking about this with the applicant. So basically I went over, cause I had known that it has been the purview of the board to suggest that you, reduce the width. I know back in April, there was a house on, Grove Avenue to which you had asked that the applicant reduce the size, in that case, he was actually increasing the nonconformity of one of the setbacks. So I went back through that and we discussed that, and we also discussed a similar application to what's in front of you today, back in the July meeting, to which an applicant had asked for the same permit under 6.1.6.4 on Faneuil Drive, a pretty similar scenario, meeting 3 of the setbacks and lessening 1 of the setbacks. So we went through it, and after my discussion with the applicant, so if you take in order to make it, like you said, Mr. Barletta, to make it a conforming lot, it would have to be 20 feet, in which case I wouldn't have to be in front of you here today. It would reduce the size of the house, so you're talking 12-foot width rooms down to 10 feet. If you add in a hallway, they're gonna be pretty, they'll be smaller, and taking into consideration the desirability of the lot. And you're also, if you're reducing the width of the house, the applicant in this scenario would also have the, if it was conforming, would then be able to extend, right now we have a 24 by 36 home, he could add on to the back, which I don't think would sit well on the property. I believe that the applicant has put forth a proposed dwelling that will sit well on the property, is not more substantially detrimental than what is currently there, and allows him to meet 3 out of the 4 setbacks. And again, that 1 setback, he is decreasing the nonconformity thereof.
Can I ask, is this, because this is, something interesting happened on a previous case, so is this on SOAR or septic?
It's on SOAR.
It is on SOAR, okay.
And I asked that same question too, and basically, when I was going through, talking about the dimensions of the home, I drove down Burnap Street and I saw with the dimensions, the proposed dimensions, again, we're reducing the nonconformity on those 2 sides, and if you're going to be reducing or asking an applicant to reduce, obviously if they wanted to seek making up their square footage in some other way, they can making it deeper. I think that would be, it wouldn't it wouldn't be aesthetically pleasing for the lot, wouldn't be aesthetically pleasing for the neighborhood if you're increasing the depth of the home to make up that square footage. And also those homes, unfortunately, in the consumer market, people would prefer wider homes rather than a deeper home for practicality purposes. And also, if you increase the length of the home, you're also decreasing the backyard that you have there, which would be the only quote-unquote usable yard, because if you have if you have 15 feet on each side, you're not really using that yard for enjoyment.
Can I say, I can appreciate where you're coming from, but I think at the end of the day, we've always, the money part of it isn't something that we should be even considering. And I think that these lots, how much you make and what you put on it is just really, I mean, if you can put the 24, we just had one, 20 foot by 36. I feel that it's not necessarily, in my opinion, that we should be basically allowing, big houses going on little lots.
And I think I approach and I look at every case on its own merits, right? Some of the other cases you referenced were corner lots, had different circumstances. And I think that, like I said, I take every case on its merits, and I think there are examples of 20-foot wide houses that work. I just don't, I'm of the belief that just because this is a special permit does not give an inherent right to build a house that doesn't meet the setbacks, if it's possible to build a house that meets the setbacks. And that's not the case on every application. So, that's how I feel. And is this case, or is this house more or less detrimental to the neighborhood? That's open to opinion, right? Your opinion might be different than mine, is different than Dan's. But when I look at a case like this and I look at a house like this, I truly believe it's possible to build a 3-bedroom, 20-foot wide house. And, I can't tell from this particular, from the site plan that's here, how wide. So this is a 50-foot wide lot.
Correct.
Is it, I'm not sure if it's sandwiched between two other 50-foot wide lots or sandwiched between 100-foot wide lots. 250s, okay? So if somebody comes back now on the house next door and wants, on number 32, and wants the side setback relief, and they want to go 10 feet on that side, now the houses are 10 feet closer than they should be. It's just a ripple effect. And I get it, but I think there are examples of 20-foot wide houses that are 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Are they as luxurious as a 20-foot wide house? No. But is this lot as luxurious as a 70-foot wide lot or a 100-foot wide lot? It's not. And that's why the houses that are on these lots are smaller. That's my opinion. And there are cases where relief is warranted and given where it's not, even if you put a 20-foot wide house on it, you might not be able to make 15 feet. But I think that the special permit does not grant the right to automatically just, maybe that's the way it's been handled here for many years, but I don't think that that's a guaranteed path to saying we can build a 20-foot wide house on a 50-foot wide lot. And that, I know that's not the popular, that's not a popular opinion, but I think it's a responsible opinion on my part, looking out for, the future build-out of a street like this. Because I don't want it to look like Somerville or like, towns where you open your window and you can reach out and pass a glass of water to your neighbor. So I just, that's how I feel. You know, I know it's not popular, but, you know, you do have the ability to push the house back further, and go, you know, 24 by 40. You know, and maintain square footage, which is what houses are, you know, which values of houses are primarily based on. So that's my opinion, and everybody can have their own.
And the other thing too is, I believe that it doesn't, you don't always have to have, three bedroom. I mean, if it's actually better to do 2 decent sized bedrooms, you know, there's other formats, you know, it's not, you know, I mean, look how big that is. It's, what is it, 11 by 11? I mean, but then the other thing too is, I don't think that as a board, we should be dictating or suggesting, oh, maybe try this, or maybe you need to have another design. I think that's happening a lot, and I think we should, you know, get some plans and actually say yay or nay on what we're given. And I feel that lately we're trying to redesign things, and I don't know if that's, you know, what we should be doing.
And then I appreciate, I appreciate the comments, and I can understand where you're coming from, Mr. Barletta and Ms. Santini on the same matter. I guess it would be the purview of myself and of the applicant as I try to navigate how the board, and again, while appreciating the fact that you have to take everything on a case-by-case basis, but I also understand that in the past the board has talked about uniformity and giving out their decisions while applying the facts on a case-by-case basis here as well. So I would ask that the board also just take into consideration, and again, while understanding what you're saying, that the applicant here is granting relief from 2 of the pre-existing non-conforming setbacks, which he's going to meet the front and he's going to meet the side, which is going to be the easterly side, or if you're facing Burnap Street, the right side of the home, and he's going to maintain the buffer of some 39.5 feet from the house, which is going to be on Grove Ave, which you've ever drawn down there would be right in his backyard. Because he does have, I mean, he's only at 800, he's at impervious area right now is 1629 out of the 2,500. So while I can appreciate, again, that we're applying this on a case-by-case basis using the rationale and what Mr. Barletta has put forth and what I've heard from Ms. Santini as well, I think that if you want to, we're talking about maintaining the character of the street and it not turning into a city. If we force this on I shouldn't say force. That's a strong word. If we ask an applicant to who is putting forth something which would not technically, if we're talking about the setbacks, be more detrimental than what is currently there, and he's pushing the house back, he's just getting closer to that house on Grove Avenue as well. So while I could understand why you want to avoid cramping on the sides, it would be, while you're trying to get a conforming with the setbacks in the front, you're allowing it to encroach in the back, which would again cramp the neighborhood in one way or another. And I would just ask that the board take that into consideration. Because I mean, in an ideal world, we could build these houses that would fit into all the existing in 2019 the setbacks. But we have these pre-existing houses, and we have an area, especially this area, which was old cottages of a lake.
I think that it, you know, you keep referencing other cases, and there are many cases where we've come before us where there've been tear downs like this that are single-story bungalows that we're putting up now, two-story homes, right? This one happens to be a two-story home already that's there, right? That appears to be about 18 to 20 foot wide, right? So putting back the same, it is, I mean, if you look, I'm gonna say that the second floor has a foot overhang, or maybe that's what it is. So it looks like it's 20 feet wide. So I don't see why we should, I don't understand why we should approve a bigger house. The house is already 2 stories, 20 feet wide. Why do we have to approve a 24-foot wide house? I'm looking at the plot plan.
Yeah, no, the existing dwelling being 23.7 feet in the back.
I'm looking, but that's, I'm looking at the 2-story section that's in the front.
Okay.
Or, I'm sorry,
Yeah. The front on Burnap, front on Burnap
Well,
Street.
I believe the main box of the house, or the main body of the house is, I'm looking it off a site plan, but appears to be 20.2 feet wide, if I read the site plan correctly, the plot plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so why are we being put to task to approve a larger house on a house that's a lot that's already non-conforming? So anything bigger than that house is more detrimental than what's there.
Mm-hmm.
We agree to that?
I wouldn't agree to that.
You wouldn't?
No, why would you say it's more detrimental?
Because it's bigger, it's
Why
wider.
does that make detrimental?
Okay, maybe not detrimental, but it's more impactful on the neighborhood than what's there.
Where's the impact?
It's 4 feet wider.
Why is that an impact? I'm asking a question.
It's a 50-foot wide lot.
No, I'm asking what the impact is.
It's closer to the setback, it's closer to the neighbors.
That's not an impact. What's the impact to the neighborhood?
I just
Is the
stated it,
question.
Tom. If you don't agree with it, that's fine. Everybody can have their own opinion. All I'm saying is that it's a bigger house on a small lot.
Tony, again,
I'm
this
trying
is
to
my
be-
opinion.
Yeah.
Well, way I look at this, the existing, right now, in one section of it, the rear is 23.7. She's about 3 feet, 7 inches off the boundary line that we're going for 10. My thing is, I weigh in the neighborhood of Burnap Street, probably Grove Ave. All those lots are probably what we're looking at here, 50-foot lots. So, in order to make, and each, like you said, case is separate, that we're only looking at one setback of 10 feet. And I don't think, when you look at 23.7, and you're kicking it over to 10 feet, and you're making it actually like a rectangle, other than the pre-existing plan, I almost think that it's not that big of an impact to that neighborhood, because that whole neighborhood's based upon, I'm pretty sure, like almost 50-foot lots, most of them, on frontage. So, if it was okay back when this house was probably built in the early 1900s, and they were all cottage styles back then, you can see it right here in that picture, and they were all camps on top of camps. So, anything that we do that's, making an improvement to the neighborhood, to the street, and not having a overbearing effect and some kind of a detrimental on the environment or something like that. And according to this, that height's about the same of what they're looking to build
But
for
Ray,
colonial.
Back in the, whenever this house was
Yeah.
originally built, I'm gonna guess, just by looking at the photos, that was a 1-story house that had a second floor put on it at some point. So when that house was originally built and they planned out that area with 50-foot wide lots, they put all single-story houses on them.
But that was the time of the times.
I know, but
Back-
our
back-
codes, our zoning has accounted for that. Our zoning has said, oh, you can build a 2-story house, but maintain 15 feet, because that's what we feel is appropriate for side setbacks. And that's all I'm saying. If they couldn't reasonably build a 20-foot wide house on the lot, or they couldn't build the same size house that they have here, I would agree with you, but I just don't, I'm trying to be fair across the board and take each case on its merits, and
Let me ask you, Tony, and again, it's your opinion, my opinion, but I'd like to have a perspective, actually, where you're coming from. If you were to make a measurement on that house for width and length, right, what would you, right now, it's being proposed 24 by 36 with a 10-foot offset off one property line. What would you feel comfortable with?
I've asked the applicant, why can't he meet the both 15-foot setbacks? What?
15 feet, so that means you gotta take it from somewhere, so if you take another 5 feet, that means that house is only gonna be, what, 19 feet wide? Or
the right-
you could take a foot off the other property line, so you make it 20. So you're saying go with a 20-foot width house?
So I'm asking, why can't we do that? And the
20 foot, 20 foot.
See,
Well, hold on, sir. Your counsel is here. If your counsel wants you to weigh in, you'll absolutely get a chance to do that. But I would suggest that you run everything by counsel first. We can't have you just shout no. Okay?
Can I,
I'm sorry, so can I make one point? So basically, if you're looking at this picture, this house, if it didn't have this little bump out here, which is probably, could have been another add-on, your house is you got 18.2, give it maybe 18, not much more on the front. And if you went back, so the reason that it's 23.7 is because of this bump out on one side, and then you've got a slight bump out on the other side. But generally, it's an 18.2 wide.
so, are you talking about the side that right now has the 3.7 over there?
Right, you got 3 point there, you got 1.8, so generally, we're actually working with you by going 20 feet.
I agree with Jackie. I think the 18.2, I mean, again, we can only go off of what you give us, right? So I look at the 18.2 feet, and then there's 1 foot on each side. I'm gonna assume, based on what you've given me, that is the second floor overhang, the 1 foot. So the body of the house is 18.2 feet wide.
Well, it's just it's the first floor is, if you look at the picture one, that what's getting you up to the 3.7, that's on the first floor.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But
But changing a non-conforming, it's like, okay, so that's, we know what you can do 20 foot, and then, yes, that would conform, and you could center it, and that would be,
So I guess what I'm gathering from the conversation, and specifically to Mr. Barletta's point on this matter about it being, so I understand the area where this house sits, and I understand the purview that, in a perfect world, if there wasn't a non-conforming structure there, if there was nothing there, it would have to meet those setbacks. But the reality as it is, as we go off how we do our zoning, we can't ignore that bottom bump out. I mean, we can't completely ignore it, because that's how we go by whatever structure is closest to the side at that point. But I guess, taking into consideration everything you've talked about, I guess it would be, I shouldn't say I guess, my consideration that I would ask you to entertain is, if you're asking the applicant to reduce the size of the house to be the 20 feet because you would, for future development or development of the land, and I heard the word bigger house on the lot, well, you're opening it up. You're not opening up for a smaller house, because it can just go deeper, because it can go deeper by right, because he has 30, I mean, it only has to be 15 feet, he has 39 left to play with as proposed. So I would ask the board to consider the fact, or to consider amongst yourselves, that if you're asking the applicant to reduce the width of the house, you're also exposing it to at that point, if it was agreed upon, be conforming, and then you could go back. And if you're looking to control the size of the home, this is a way to control the size of the home, albeit you're going to be making, again, that setback less non-conforming on that westerly left-handed side, but you're also keeping intact the buffer zone and that backyard from the home that's going to be on Burnham Street in the back. Because honestly, I understand and appreciate every single thing you've said, every single thing, and I keep going back. I was referencing prior applications before the board, only because trying to get my understanding. And when I watch those, now obviously I'm here representing the applicant, so I would be saying that, but I can understand and appreciate when we ask someone to reduce the size of a house, because it would be more detrimental if you pervert that that non-conforming setback, and in which scenario I sit there as a person who deals in real estate all day, and I say, you know what, I understand and I appreciate exactly what they're asking for, because there's no way to reconfigure it. It's just you want to control the size of the home that goes on that lot and make sure that we're not substantially making those setbacks more non-conforming. I shouldn't even really say substantially, just we're not making it more non-conforming. But in this, and I ask you to consider on a case-by-case scenario that this home, if we're looking to control the size of the home, by reducing the width, you're not gonna, I should say you're not, you're opening up the possibility that you're not reducing the actual size of the home, you're just reducing the width, and it's opening up to the expansion in the back. So again, I don't mean to bring up past examples as a negative, or hey, you have to do this because you've done it that way. I just use it as when I'm trying to view this scenario and when I'm preparing for a meeting such as this, I think about that, and I would agree in the case what I brought up with that Grove Avenue. I mean, that makes sense to me, because you're making it more non-conforming, you narrow it, and it kind of, that's how you control what the size of the home that was going there, which is in the purview of this board. But I guess on this application that's in front of us, if we're trying to maintain the neighborhood, I believe that a 24-foot house on this lot, I mean, if you look at it, it's sitting nicely. It allows for there to be, there is a buffer, the 16-foot and the 10-foot, and you're still getting 39 feet off that back deck to what amounts to a reasonable, I mean, it's only 100 feet deep, so, I mean, 110 feet deep, so your yard is gonna be limited by that anyways.
So let's just, let me just comment on something. I'm not trying to control anything.
No,
right?
yeah.
That's not what I'm trying
Yeah.
to do. What I'm trying to do is to take each case on its own merits. So, having looked at this a little bit longer, I could say that, and I guess I'd want it confirmed, but the upper story of that house, the second floor, I think, based off of this plot plan that you gave me, is 22.2 feet wide. Because the front portion is 18.2.
Yeah.
And then there's 1 foot on each side. So if I could confirm that the upper portion of that house is 22.2 feet wide, right? And it's a 2-story house that's there right now, I would have no problem approving a 22.2 foot wide house there, because that's no bigger than what's there right now.
Okay.
Do you follow my logic?
Yeah, no, I follow it, but and again, using the word control, in my words, not trying to say you're trying to control
Understand.
anything. I understand that, but I think,
I think what I just said was I think what I just put out there was very reasonable and could be substantiated by what's there. So I'm not arbitrarily saying the house has to be 20 feet wide and you have to meet both 15-foot setbacks, but I can justify a decision going forward to another case to say, well, why did you allow a 22-foot wide house here and a 20-foot wide house here? I can justify a 22-foot wide house here because there's a 22-foot wide house right there already existing, and you're improving the setbacks. I think that's a fair and reasonable decision for this lot.
so I guess my question, so say if it went 22, and it went from, you went from 10 feet on the left, so the house would probably shift it over, so you met 15, and you're at 13. So we're still dealing with the, with a non-conforming use on the one side by less than 2 feet. So I guess I wouldn't call it a rebuttal, but my question at that point would be, I know you can build a foot wide. I know you can build a 20-foot wide house. I know you can build a 22, and I know you can build a 24. But as far as the standard goes relative to it being, I mean, we're still not meeting the setback on the left-hand side. So in which case, so you're losing 2 feet. And I would assume the applicant would, so he's losing square footage. So I would also assume, again, you know, economics really have no purview of this board. You don't care and you shouldn't care. But to an owner and a builder, you know, they do care because that's how they arrive at a price. So you can't look at it in a vacuum. So I would surmise, and I would have to confirm it with the applicant himself, that if he's losing any square footage off the width, I would assume he's going to want to make it up in the depth, just so he can recoup, because he has a you know, I'm going to build this house and this is what I'm going to pay for it, so on and so forth. So we're going to be, again, it would be almost like exposing the lot to, again, further expansion in depth. And I think if I'm looking at the house at 24 feet, taking into consideration everything you've said and keeping the 39 feet off the back, I would surmise and it would be, I would opine that house as constituted would sit on the lot nicer than if we had to lose 2 feet and then kind of make it up in depth for square footage purposes. And again, I'm not trying to, you know, combat you at every angle here. I'm just
Well, I
trying
mean,
to
I think we've been saying that we're non-conforming on one side, but aren't we also non-conforming on the front too?
No, because the average in R10 is 14.7.
Okay, yes, okay. The average between the two houses, yes, okay.
So Tony, what you're saying is basically, by going 22 feet, the non-conforming side's gonna be 14 feet, correct? Because you're gonna take a foot off the 16, shift it.
I don't know why the house is positioned where it is. They made a decision to do that. I don't know why.
But I mean, that's basically what you're gonna end up, right? 14 foot on the non-conforming side?
I think
If he goes 22 feet wide,
Yeah,
I imagine he's gonna wanna take a foot off the 16,
yeah. So
shift it to the other side, that's 11, right? That gives 11 plus the extra 2 feet, right? So you'd be 13 feet on the non-conforming side? That's what he's saying, right?
Well, so if you lose 2 feet off the house and
Yeah.
you lose a foot off the right side,
Yeah.
then that's 3 feet to the left, so 13 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
13 feet.
You're correct, I added that up
3
wrong.
feet.
It's 20.2.
Okay, so can I go back, because we're talking about
You're-
22, and
you're-
it's really, it's
you're right.
20,
I actually
it's
added it up
20
wrong.
feet, point 2, a foot on each side.
You're right.
It should be
That's
20.2.
It's my mistake.
Sorry, we're kind of getting away from the, so can I make a point that the 3.5 on the left side, if you're looking at it?
Yep. 3.7
so
on the
is
westerly
on-
side.
So, the only that's only on that side, the 3.5.
It's a little shed in the back.
So we're kind of like, oh, well, the back is 23.7, but it's not really fully 20, it's only that from that section. I don't even know, however long that is, it's 3.5 feet in, right? But the other side's not that, is not, it's not symmetrical, so I understand where you're coming, you're like, oh, we really want a 24 foot, but I think personally, you're wishing and hoping, but we're only talking just because this side sticks out, that you're feeling that you want it 24 foot when it's kind of not warranted, and we're trying to say, we'll give you 20.2 and then move it to the center. Why isn't that fair? And if you want to like go to the back for another foot to compensate, then I guess that would be your choice.
So I So we're talking about the side, so the westerly side, which is the left side of the house. If I'm facing out towards Burnap Street, we're talking about the 3.7 feet, which is and we're talking about it only being the back portion of the house.
Right, it's
So-
only that section there.
And
It sticks out, it doesn't stick out on the other side, just slightly by a foot, 0.8. Oh, that's the second,
it's the first floor. It's the, if you look at the picture one that I submitted, it's the one that comes off. It looks like, so it's got a roof and the gable goes into the second floor, but it looks like the room right there is next to the tank is the
right.
first floor. So, but that, I mean, as far as zoning purposes goes, that's the setback we go off of, what's the closest to the lot line, so which is the 3.7 feet. So with the proposed house, when they square it off, we have to consider that is the 3.7 feet, and we're squaring it off to be the 10 feet on one side and the 16 on the other, while meeting, all the other setbacks.
yes, you squared the whole house off to be 24 on both ends, but the original is really 20.2, and then the back end is the 23.7.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only a small section of it, so
I would submit to the board that asking the applicant in this scenario to what would be the 20 feet would make this conforming, and it would take it outside of the purview of this board, which would, and if we're thinking about planning wise, which would open up the lot to a larger home, because at that point, we can go, the applicant could go all the way back to the 15 feet on the back. So if your goal is to preserve the neighborhood, and again, I can't say this, I'm trying to relay the fact that I understand, because I really do understand what you're trying to doing, what we're suggesting. But if the applicant were to agree to a 20-foot house, it wouldn't have to be subject to a special permit here. They could just build it. And the reason, I guess you could think of it as a reason it being here, if you're worried about encroachment in houses on lots this size, by offering it this way with a 24-foot wide house, you get to know what type of home is going there, which is going to be with the plans that have been submitted in the plot plan that's here. It's going to be 24 feet wide by 36 feet deep, and it's not going to be any deeper than that 36 feet, and it's going to be no wider than the 24.
Why is it outside of our purview? I don't necessarily agree with that.
Well,
It's
what I
outside
mean,
of our purview
well-
to not approve a house that doesn't meet the setbacks?
but it would meet the setbacks if it was 20 feet.
if you did 20.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay.
Oh, no, I meant if it was 20 feet, it would meet the
And then,
setbacks.
to your other comment, you could build the house all the way back to 15 feet off the back setback. No builder in their right mind is gonna do that, because he's gonna build a house with a reasonable yard, and I don't believe a builder would do that.
And I agree,
Right, so, I mean,
especially this builder who, I'm just saying, I mean, I'm talking theoretically, I'm talking what he could do with the land. I'm not saying what he would
Right,
do,
but I don't
because he's
think-
been here for years and years and years, and he builds nice houses, and he's been doing it for a long time. What I'm trying to say, I guess, what I'm trying to relay here is, if it's shrunk to 20 feet, it would be conforming, and then he could.
He'd make it longer, I get it.
Yes, he could.
Fully get it.
Yeah.
And I would trust that the builder would balance the length of that house with an appropriate yard for all the reasons that you've already stated.
Mhm.
I do believe that would happen.
And I believe there would be a balanced house. I would be hard pressed to believe that if it's going to be a 20-foot house, that there wouldn't be some making up of the square footage
I
in the
agree
back.
100%. It'd go to 40 or whatever they decide is appropriate.
And we're getting a larger house on the same lot.
You're getting a longer house, you're getting a narrower house, and a house with a roof line that's not as high, because it's 4 feet narrower. So, again, there's arguments to all sides. I'm sure Dan has his own opinion on this. And I stand by the fact that there's a 20-foot wide house that's 2 stories on this property already. No problem approving same-size house on this lot. And I don't think we should be forced into approving a bigger house just because that house is shifted too far to one side of the lot right now, when that house probably 50 or 60 years ago was only a single-story house. And that's why it was put that way on that lot. So look, that's my opinion. Everybody has their own opinion. And
What do you think?
This is a philosophical discussion, right? That's why it's interesting to just listen to everybody's opinion, because it's a philosophical one. I know where he's coming from. He's like, if we're gonna do this, let's do it according to the strict rules. I get it. Problem is, I do think every lot in every area is different. This particular area of town, it's no secret, has a set of challenges. This house should be gone. This is an eyesore. This should be gone, and if I see a proposal that maybe isn't strict to the rules, but it's gonna result in this being gone and the house that's there being there, it's gonna benefit the neighborhood, it's gonna benefit the town. And I also agree that, money and how much the builder or the attorneys make shouldn't really be a consideration. However, if it's an incentive to cause houses like this to be gone, and it really is gonna be a lot better than what's there, and it makes these houses go quicker, economics drives a rejuvenation of this challenged area, and more houses like this go, I'm in favor of it. It's a slight deviation from the bright line rule, I get it. So I guess I can see where he's coming from, but I think, really being strict in an area like this is going to delay the upward progress of this particular area.
I would agree.
So,
I would agree with you.
and we're a Board of Appeal, right? People come to us when they want to get some type of relief or at least some consideration from the bright line rules. And I cannot think of an area or a home that would benefit more from a little bit of a consideration in that regard. So I don't say we have to do it the same way with every lot to be consistent. Yeah, you try to be consistent. You don't want to treat someone different than someone else. But I would vote for this in a New York minute. And I would vote, and the fact that it's this house in this particular area makes me even more inclined to vote for it. So that's just my opinion. I understand it's a philosophical discussion, but I think we want to better the town. We want to, and you know what? I'm assuming that a lot of folks that have homes like this, that if they can somehow, gain some monetary benefit from that house and better the town and better the neighborhood. I'm looking what's proposed to be there. It looks fairly nice. If it's a few feet over the bright, strict rule, I'm okay with it. That's my opinion. That's all.
Having it gone, yes, I agree that it would be, something nicer put there, but I don't agree with that we can't have a house there. Wilmington's great for the housing, there's low inventory. It's not to say it's not gonna sell with a beautiful new home as a 20-foot. We have several 20-foot houses in Wilmington. People would love to come here, and I think a 20-foot house is reasonable.
What happens if we take a vote on this and it doesn't succeed for the 24 feet, but can he come back with another plan?
I believe so, sure. This isn't a variance. I don't believe you're prohibited from coming back with something new. But if you see the writing on the wall, what I would suggest you do, just to save the work burden on Kelly and to keep the thing in the queue, I would probably, if you're gonna do that, maybe, request a continuance and work something out.
And Mr. Chairman, I guess, like you said, reading the writing on the wall, if what I'm understanding correctly from the temper of the board here is that, or some members of the board, it would be a 20-foot house, which would.
Well, I mean, all I can tell you is, reading the tea leaves, you can only sustain one vote against your application.
Correct.
I'm sensing, and I don't want to speak for anybody, but there is two that are sitting here. So I think you have a choice. You can either roll the dice and, maybe the eloquence of the other board members will have convinced somebody to change their mind, but I would probably suggest that you might want to get a continuance and regroup. That's you do what you want, but.
I appreciate it. In a continuance before public comment, or can I ask for continuance after?
No, I mean, you have a client here. If you want to let your client address the board, by all means, he was going to do so, and I want to afford him that opportunity.
They were all cottages. None of them meet your new waters of 15 feet here, 15 feet. Some of them are only 4 feet off the lines. Mine's 9 feet off the line. And mine, if I ever wanted it to come down, I'd want something like he's putting in, wants to put it next door.
Sir, can you state your name and address?
Richard Butler, 32 Burnett.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was your client.
No,
I apologize, sir. I shut you down. Well, I would have shut you down anyway because it wasn't the public hearing. But I thought that was your client. I apologize.
He is the direct abutter, which is on the side, which is subject to the.
I got the little White House.
Yeah,
That's right
he's
next
subject to
door.
the 3.7. So he actually, the only non-conforming side would abut his house.
And you're in favor of this?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's going to look.
It came down years ago,
You know what, sir? And I hear you.
and mine should come
Yeah,
down too.
and I hear you, and I understand where you're coming from, and I really do. But it's funny. I've been on this board for 16 years more, maybe. I don't even remember. But I've seen, the people come with different opinions. I can't say that these folks have an unreasoned opinion. They just want to make sure everything is, if you can build it within a certain area, then you should do so. I just see a troubled lot. I mean, the lot, all of them have challenges for the size. But I'm looking at this house. I see an oil burner on the outside of the house. I was telling Tony, I've never seen that. I mean, you literally get an oil burner on the outside of the house.
Mine's on the outside too.
I mean, the tank, I said. I'm like, look, this, and I don't want to insult anybody who maybe have lived in this house recently, but it's an eyesore, and it's not good for the town, and if there's anything we can do to expedite the quick turnaround and gentrification of this area, I would support it. So, I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm going to sit here and say over 2 feet either way. Anything I can do to get this house removed as quickly as possible and have that other house put up, I'm going to support. But I'm only one person. You need the applicant needs. They can only withstand one no vote.
Correct.
So, that's where I'm at.
Can
So.
I just, for further pleasure of the board, I guess I would be speaking to Ms. Santini and Mr. Barletta in this instance. Again, reading the tea leaves. I would, before I decide how I would like to go with this, I would again ask for consideration in light of what Mr. Bierman said of this in